Charles Oliveira is back in the spotlight, and as always, with fire in his eyes and something to prove. After one of the toughest knockouts of his career against Ilia Topuria, the Brazilian didn't just return to action quickly, but also showed that his warrior spirit remains unshaken. Yet, what caught everyone's attention, beyond the main event of UFC Rio, was the message he sent to one of the sport's most popular names, Paddy Pimblett. Even while focused on his triumphant return to Brazil after more than 5 years without fighting at home, Do Bronx didn't let the Englishman's provocation slide. Recently, Pimblett called him stupid and amateur after his loss to Topuria. Charles's answer was direct, and delivered with the same grin that Brazilian fans know so well. People can say whatever they want, but we'll see. I'll be ready. I always want to fight, and I'll be ready if needed. It just makes me laugh. That's the truth. But before we dive into this new rivalry, it's important to understand the context. Charles Oliveira returned to center stage as the headliner of UFC Rio, taking on Poland's Mateusz Gamrot after the original opponent, Rafael Fiziev, was forced out due to injury. The switch, from a dangerous striker to a technical grappler, completely changed the matchup. But not Oliveira's enthusiasm. Quite the opposite. He saw it as the perfect opportunity to prove he's still one of the most dangerous fighters in the lightweight division. And that's exactly what he did. In front of a roaring crowd at Jeunesse Arena, Charles submitted Gamrot in the second round with a flawless rear naked choke, earning a dominant victory and an instant return to the winner's column. It was a statement performance, a reminder that the submission king is still alive, still hungry, and still capable of putting on a show at the very top level of the UFC. It was also the first time in Gamrot's career that he had ever been submitted, a milestone that only reinforces the magnitude of the Brazilian's win. With the victory, Oliveira now holds 17 submissions and 21 finishes inside the octagon, extending his own record as the greatest submission artist in UFC history. But what comes next? If it's up to Charles, the next step could be one of the most exciting chapters of his career. The São Paulo native made it clear he has a specific target in mind, and it's not just any name. During his post-fight interview, he grabbed the mic and sent a message directly to UFC Chief Business Officer Hunter Campbell. "Hey Hunter, Charles Oliveira versus Max Holloway, BMF belt. Let's make it happen." Yes, the Brazilian wants to challenge Max Holloway for the BMF title, the Bad Mother Feast winner belt created by the UFC to honor its toughest and most entertaining fighters. And there's history behind this call-out. In 2015, Oliveira faced Holloway and lost in just 99 seconds due to an unexpected neck injury. That moment has lingered like an open wound ever since. And now, a decade later, the Brazilian sees the chance for redemption in a fight that could define an era. Holloway, on the other hand, defended the BMF belt in July by knocking out Dustin Poirier at UFC 318, one of the year's best fights. That win cemented the Hawaiian as the sport's reigning toughest man alive and reignited the interest of several challengers eager to face the former featherweight king. And Charles, it seems, wants to be next in line. For Oliveira, though, it's not just about revenge. It's an opportunity to carve his name into a different kind of legacy, one that symbolizes his never-back-down mentality. The BMF belt has belonged to Jorge Masvidal, Justin Gaethje, and now Max. If I win it, I'd become only the second undisputed champion in history to hold that title. That would mean a lot to me, said the Brazilian in an interview. Indeed. The BMF title has only been held by 3 fighters in UFC history, and they all share one thing in common. They're warriors who've earned the fans' respect through pure grit and heart. Oliveira fits that mold perfectly. He's the all-time submission record holder, the author of one of the greatest comebacks in modern UFC history, and one of the sport's most beloved figures. But it's not just the belt that drives Do Bronx. The victory over Gamrot reignited his dream of reclaiming the lightweight title. In his 4th fight in 2 years, the Brazilian showed he's still active, sharp, and hungry, something rare among elite fighters. He even promised to fight on the upcoming White House card in Washington, if the UFC confirms the event, and went as far as to mention that he'd like to steal an opponent from Michael Chandler, his longtime rival. That idea makes perfect sense. Oliveira has already defeated Chandler in spectacular fashion twice, including in 2021, when he captured the lightweight crown. Facing someone Chandler had been targeting would be yet another statement of dominance among the division's elite. Meanwhile, the Brazilian continues to show the same charisma and composure that made him such a fan favorite. Even after suffering a brutal knockout, he never made excuses or shied away from criticism. When the ever-provocative Paddy Pimblet decided to label him amateur and stupid for trading punches with Ilia Topuria, Charles responded with grace and a hint of irony. People can say whatever they want, but we'll see. It just makes me laugh. That's the truth. Those words not only closed the controversy, but also showed how much Oliveira has matured. He understands the media game now, knows that trash talk is part of the show, and realizes that his best answer, as always, comes inside the octagon. The stage for 2026 is wide open. Topuria is expected to defend his lightweight crown against another contender next year, and Oliveira could position himself as the ultimate backup, especially if he keeps winning and thrilling the fans. At the same time, a clash with Holloway for the BMF title would keep the Brazilian in the spotlight, and undoubtedly be a massive draw. With the energy of the Brazilian crowd, and the support of millions of fans worldwide, Charles Oliveira shows that there's still plenty of fight left in him, and bold plans ahead. Between revenge, symbolic belts, and rivalries answered with elegance, the former champion continues writing his legacy his own way, fighting, winning, and smiling. And if time has proven anything, it's that you should never doubt Do Bronx. He might fall, but he always comes back. And when he does, he shines brighter than ever. The rivalry between Charles Oliveira and Max Holloway seems to have taken on a life of its own. And now the question isn't just who wants to fight, but when this long-awaited rematch will finally happen after the huge success of UFC Rio, where Charles Oliveira regained the crowd's confidence and reaffirmed his status as a living MMA legend. The former lightweight champ is ready for new challenges, and at the top of that list is none other than Max Blessed Holloway, the current BMF title holder. The issue is, while Charles dreams of a historic clash at the White House event, Holloway wants to settle things much sooner. The Hawaiian isn't interested in waiting months for a special occasion. He wants to fight as soon as possible, and preferably on his own terms. During a live stream on his Kick channel, Holloway didn't hold back. "I don't know if I want to wait that long," he said. "I'll be back in training soon." Then he dropped a hint that made his intentions crystal clear. "Maybe February? Fight in Las Vegas or something like that. We fight on my terms, brother." Holloway's stance isn't surprising. He's coming off one of the best performances of his career. A spectacular knockout win over Dustin Poirier in July at UFC 318. A fight that cemented his reputation as one of the toughest and most exciting fighters in the sport. Now, with the BMF belt on his shoulder and the memory of his 2015 win over Oliveira in the bank, Holloway feels confident enough to dictate the pace of this rematch. On the other hand, Charles Oliveira seems to have other plans. The ever-charismatic Brazilian posted a symbolic and witty message on X just hours after UFC Rio. "White House Aloha!" A clear call out to the Hawaiian, signaling that he wants their rematch to happen at the UFC's special White House card planned for mid-year. While Max wants to fight soon, Charles prefers the grand stage. And honestly, it makes perfect sense. A historic event in the US, featuring a Brazilian icon versus a Hawaiian superstar for the BMF belt, would be one of the most anticipated fights of the year. But a lot can change between now and then. And if Charles has his way, he won't be sitting idle. UFC Rio was more than just a comeback for Oliveira. It was redemption. Only a few months after suffering a brutal knockout loss to Ilia Topuria, the São Paulo native bounced back in spectacular fashion, submitting Mateus Gamrot in front of a euphoric home crowd. The win didn't just restore Oliveira's momentum, it shattered records. That rear-naked choke in the second round marked his first submission since June 2023, and tied him with the legendary Mirko Cro Cop for total submissions under the Zuffa umbrella, UFC, Pride, WEC, Strikeforce. He also surpassed Wanderlei Silva and Donald Cerrone in total finishes, reaching his 21st stoppage victory. Even more impressively, Gamrot had never been submitted before in 29 professional fights. All 3 of his prior losses had come by decision, until Charles Oliveira forced him to tap. That alone speaks volumes about his skill and finishing instincts. At 35 years old, and over a decade into his UFC run, Oliveira remains a phenomenon. His ability to end fights in spectacular ways has made him the greatest submission artist in the sport's history, and one of the most feared finishers alive. It's that aggressive, technical style that makes Do Bronx a global fan favorite. Whether he's brawling wildly on the feet or hunting for openings on the ground, the Brazilian always delivers. He's also the fighter with the most post-fight bonuses in UFC history. With his victory in Rio, Oliveira raised his total to 21 bonuses, an unmatched record. That includes 14 Performance of the Night awards, 4 Fight of the Night honors, and 3 Old School Submission of the Night bonuses, a category that no longer exists. Combined, those awards have earned him over $1 million, a reflection of how much he's valued by both fans and the promotion, from his debut in 2010 to the legendary night he knocked out Michael Chandler at Madison Square Garden to claim the lightweight crown. Charles Oliveira has built a career defined by resilience, excitement, and heart. And if there's one certainty in MMA, it's that when Do Bronx steps into the cage, you're getting a show. But even with the celebration still fresh from UFC Rio, Oliveira's eyes are already on the horizon. His win over Gamrot has reignited his hunger for greatness, and a rematch with Holloway is at the top of that list. Back in 2015, their fight ended in heartbreak for the Brazilian. After just 99 seconds, a neck injury forced him to withdraw, handing Holloway a technical TKO victory. Years later, that unfinished business still lingers. And now, with both men on fire, the rematch feels inevitable. For fans, it's the kind of fight that transcends rankings. There's no linear title on the line, but there's pride, legacy, and the spirit of true combat. On one side, Holloway, the man who redefined striking volume and became synonymous with toughness. On the other, Oliveira, the submission wizard, the phoenix who keeps rising from every setback. As the UFC decides its next move, one thing is clear: both men want this fight. And when it happens, it'll be a main event-worthy clash. The only question left is whether it'll happen under the bright lights of Las Vegas in February, as Holloway wants, or on the historic stage of the White House card. As Oliveira envisions, either way, the fans are already on board. Charles Oliveira is back in the spotlight. And now, with the BMF belt in play and the chance to become only the second undisputed champion to hold that symbolic title, the Brazilian has one more opportunity to expand his legend. And if the fight world has learned anything by now, it's this: never bet against Do Bronx. He can fall, he can be doubted, he can be criticized, but in the end, he always finds a way to rise and shine brighter than ever.